Hello everyone and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast with Jesse, Heater and MJ. In this week's episode, we'll be discussing Netflix's ninth film, the 2016 thriller Rebirth. Directed by Karl Mueller, starring Fran Kranz, Adam Goldberg, Nicky Whelan, Kat Foster, Andrew J. West and Eric Ladin. Good afternoon, boys.
It's funny hearing you reel off so many names of this film. I didn't feel like there was that many important performances.
I think maybe that's the catering team. Got a gig in there as well. Nicky Whelan. Oh, yeah, good. Nicky Whelan.
It's good to have a fresh face Australian in there. I did actually make sure I had a look because I couldn't remember what Nicky Whelan was from. I figured she was from like one of the big Australian soaps in some capacity.
Neighbours or Home and Away.
But you know what I think I remember her from is Beyond the Boundary on Channel 10 when Channel 10 had the AFL. And I think that's why.
Really?
Yeah. And she's also on Coxie's Big Break as well.
Oh, that's a breakout role. Coxie's Big Break.
But I reckon it was Beyond the Boundary that I remember there.
Righto.
When they had the footy rights and...
Gee, that was a long time ago.
Maybe the peak of her career.
Well,
Sure wasn't this.
We'll get into her a little bit later on when we talk about some of the acting in this. But I guess we'll kick it off with our fast flicks, our quick summary of the film. Hater, hit us off. Go.
All right, mate. So, Rebirth. An average American husband and father is surprised by a long-lost college friend who convinces him to join him on a self-discovery retreat called Rebirth. He soon realises this cult-like program is a lot more dangerous and scary than he could have ever imagined.
Again, you've hit the mark.
Dangerous and scary.
How about you, MJ?
A slightly confusing and very unsettling thriller about a self-help seminar on steroids. An intriguing premise with a somewhat interesting ability to keep you engaged, but ultimately let down by unfleshed characters and too many plot holes.
Good. I really struggled to write one for this. So I'm going to use the word struggling. A guy is struggling with a 9-to-5 job when he reconnects with an old friend who offers him the chance of a lifetime to be reborn. He signs him up to the Rebirth facility where he faces challenges on the path to starting over. Wow, that sounds like this...
You don't give much away there, Jesse.
I know.
That might be your shortest one. You normally give out the whole story.
You normally have the final scene in your fast.
I like to usually just...
And about the ending
go the whole,
as well.
give away everything.
Did you finish this film?
I did. Did I finish it? I did finish this film. I don't know how, but I did.
It's unfortunate, wasn't it?
It wasn't that bad.
From that setup, it sounds like this could be an intriguing sort of film.
I think from all the kind of plot summaries, you kind of like if you're just looking at kind of the plot of the movie, you're like, okay, here we go. This could be good.
I think it was intriguing. I like, despite the fact that there were certainly, especially at the start, elements where I was pretty bored of it and didn't really care too much about the characters. I was always like, so what is actually happening here? What is going to be next?
Yeah.
It got me thinking in that respect.
I guess, obviously, just from a few remarks, I wasn't a big fan of this movie, but all throughout it, I was still really intrigued as to how it was going to end. Like, I was kind of sitting there going, I'm not really enjoying this too much. I'm not really sure the characters, but I do want to know how this movie ends. Where in other movies, it's kind of like, I'm sick of this. I wish I could turn it off. I was generally like, no, I want to see how this actually ends, what happens in the end. So it did actually keep me intrigued the whole way through.
That payoff, I'm sure it
It
did.
wasn't.
There was no payoff.
It wasn't. Well,
What wasn't a payoff? No.
There was no payoff.
we could talk about the ending later.
We'll talk about the ending later. So, do we learn anything about this film? Do we find anything interesting about it? Because I found this really hard to find much.
Ghost movie online.
Not much to
one's
find.
Talking about it.
It was the first kind of low budget Netflix film that was funded by Netflix itself.
Yep. Premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival in April 2016, and then Netflix released it in July.
Yeah. They produced it for $2 million.
It felt very low budget.
It felt very much
those
like,
scenes at the start in his office and stuff. It felt like they had just hired out this little part of this office, and they had like a
or they
short
just
amount of
cleaned
time
out a
before-
room in their own Netflix offices and hey, we'll film in here. But
It felt cheap.
yeah, very much kind of the $2 million
Every
kind of thought.
piece of merch that had that Rebirth logo on it, I was like,
Ugh.
who made These t-shirts?
Well, they bought them in bulk because they got it cheaper in bulk, of course.
Of course, but I think they just bought stickers and then just stuck them on stuff rather than actually getting them printed.
I was having to read of Adam Goldberg, who plays Zach. He had to audition for the role.
Really, poor guy.
He was. I think he was pretty keen on it, but the filmmakers had never seen him do anything like this, so they kind of looked at him and went, "Yep, it's fine, but you're going to have to audition so we can see if you actually can do this." It's kind of a first role for him.
Why didn't they do that by the other actors? I actually thought he was alright. I thought he stood out because I thought some of the acting in it was pretty poor.
Yeah.
And actually, he stood out a little bit.
So to the audition then.
As usual, I always have a check of Rotten Tomatoes.
It didn't have a score.
Didn't have a score.
Didn't have a score on Rotten Tomatoes.
So then I clicked a little further to see what the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes was. It was a good 27%.
Hang on, so this doesn't have a score because not enough critics
not enough well-known critics. Yeah, gave it a review. So
even
nothing.
bothered to write it.
Yeah, it has nothing.
Okay.
Has nothing on there.
It's got a flat 5 on IMDb from all their user ratings.
That's fair enough.
Tough,
like that,
yeah.
that feels not bad.
Half. Okay. Yeah, we're going with half now. I think the only thing I could find was filmed in LA.
It was filmed in LA,
In and around LA.
Netflix have an office in LA, do they?
I think it's the third film I think it was that the director had done.
Second, I wrote. Second
was it?
feature. I think he might have written a short.
He'd done a short before that.
Yeah.
He did a short called Widow and Mr. Jones.
Mr. Jones is the film.
Yeah, it was
this
the only
one.
other film.
Yeah. And then he'd written a couple of others.
But interestingly, this again was written and directed by the same guy. Goes that whole
It's been
auteur theory.
Yeah.
4 out of the first 9 Netflix films written and directed by the same person. So I think it was Ricky Gervais
Ricky
who
Gervais
pointed that out, thinking it's going to be a real opportunity. And it's happened so far.
Yeah.
I've got my my weekly music update. I think when
Music.
yeah, like these songs that Netflix films seem to have. So they had that little disco song when he walks into that Rebirth room and they're like, "Welcome to your rebirth," with like that doof doof in the background. It was like another great original Netflix song. But overall, I thought the soundtrack throughout this film was horrible. Like it just didn't fit with the tone of the film. Like really did my head in throughout.
Again, it was cheap. Everything
Everything
about it was trying to cut
very much,
cut
yeah.
corners.
It's almost as cheap as our intro song to our podcast.
I enjoy that.
It's one of my favourite parts. And it's better than the music in this movie.
Oh, good. I could get a gig on some movies. Characters.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't really find any likable. I didn't like just kind of going through the movie, and in movies like you root for characters and you want them to do well. I really wasn't a fan of just any of the characters being played.
Kyle
annoyed me.
Character.
He annoyed me.
Really disliked him.
Yeah.
See, he grew on me. And I don't know if the acting performance is what grew on me more, because I thought at the start he felt like that real stereotypical requirement for a thriller film.
Yeah.
A really mundane life. And I thought his acting felt incredibly wooden. Like he was just phoning it in. But I feel like Fran Kranz, who played Kyle, warmed into the role when the character started discovering more, and he sort of had a bit more license to go a bit more crazy and engage a little bit more. And I by the end, I actually felt like he was pretty believable for what he was going through, despite maybe a little bit of overacting at times.
I actually do like that description of wooden. I think especially the second half of the movie was definitely kind of more involved, more into
animated.
it. Yeah. But definitely that's actually a good way to describe it. I think the first half of the movie, very wooden. Yeah, it didn't offer a lot.
And the Zach guy, I thought he was like someone from NSYNC or something. He reminded me like a boy band sort of.
His character wasn't fleshed out at all.
He was one of probably the only actor in this that I knew, and I liked him from like TV shows I've seen him, and I just liked the actor himself. Hated this character, and this guy he was annoying and just really irritated me.
So he appears as like this Tyler Durden-esque character, despite the fact that he's obviously real. But you never actually understand how he's gotten to where he is, why he's doing it.
No backstory at all for him.
Was this manifesto thing like a real driving cause for Rebirth? It feels like a really flimsy foundation for a guy when put to the test. Is actually he was really cunning. And he ultimately a lot more sane than he seemed like he was, but you didn't get it. No.
I really thought there'd be a lot more kind of backstory on the manifesto. It seemed like an important plot point to get him involved. And then we just basically don't hear much about it for a while. I'm like, well, where did that fit in? Did they just kind of think, hey, we'll go with this. Oh, no, we're going to run with something else now? Just didn't seem like a lot of research and backstory was done for that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like maybe there just wasn't that much to be talked about, and they just thought, we got to have something. What about they put this manifesto together in college? Oh yeah, that'll do. Like that's kind of how it felt. But I guess that's why I was intrigued to hear more, because I'm like, there's going to be something.
Some sort of reveal, you'd think. Nicky Whelan's character, we spoke about Nicky Whelan before. I felt like every piece of dialogue that it was a question. Everything she said was a question.
She answered every question with a more cryptic question.
Yeah, it was just a question followed by a question followed by a question.
Well, that was like the point of Rebirth, because it was like you do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
She reminded me. I don't know. Have any of you guys seen Species?
Actually, I have seen.
She reminded me of the chick from Species. Like I was like very robotic and just.
I can see that now.
Just gave me nothing. I was like, am I watching Species? Like I thought an alien's going to jump out of her chest and yeah.
I had no idea where she fit in, and the fact that she was there at the end with the camera makes me think that she's some sort of head honcho of this whole thing. Is she like a financial investor? Did she just get roped in like everybody else? Like, again, her and Zach, you kind of feel like they're probably the most important backstories to where this film ends up.
Yeah.
And you have no idea why or how it actually happened.
How they got involved, where they fit in, and kind of the hierarchy and things like that. It was just...
But watching it, I didn't really care though.
That was the thing.
But you care because you need it for the payoff if you wanted to get a payoff, because you just don't understand. And that's why you think like... It's like this whole plot wasn't thought out enough.
Yeah.
I feel like
you're always kind of waiting. I was talking before about how I was intrigued. I was going, and you're always waiting for kind of, that moment where you're like, oh, okay.
That's why they did this. That's why they did this.
And it just never happened.
Yeah.
And like Carl's character, I feel like if you had, an A-grade actor in that role, maybe it would have been more believable. Maybe you would have wanted to root for him more. Maybe you would have, put a Bradley Cooper or...
Yeah, but I think they were still hamstrung by the fact that there was no real plausible plot.
Yeah, the script wasn't great for him to work with, I guess, to
if you
begin
put-
with.
I mean, you put someone that you
put someone who's
recognise.
likable in there, and then you're like,
Maybe it changes it.
I would say if you put a Brad Cooper in there, everyone likes Brad Cooper, so you're automatically going to go, we want Brad Cooper to do well. But I mean, it still wouldn't change the fact I think that Brad Cooper's not playing a great role and that the script's not great for him.
I always called him Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, me too.
Never heard the term, but used it 4 times just then.
Yeah.
We're buddies. We're on nickname basis. Me and Brad. Gotta love Brad Cooper.
Oh, poor Bradley.
But man, characters are tough to talk about in this one, because I thought Kyle was the only one that was actually fleshed out a little bit. That you actually understood his backstory, understood he's got this mundane life, he's got this 9-to-5 job, he's got the family, he's got the daughter. You kind of understood him, but no one else they gave the time of day to.
That's it, because a lot of the others were just in one scene. It wasn't for a very long time. They didn't, a lot of them didn't have that many speaking lines. Besides them, it just felt very rushed and kind of to get him through. I mean, even the character of his boss, when he just walks in the office a couple of times, he's just
phone
on the phone, and just like, what is he even like? Sure, he has a line or something in there. It was really kind of awkward, I thought, to watch those scenes. I was like, what is going on?
See, those office scenes at the start, I thought they were probably some of the better parts of the film, because everyone was wearing those dull grey suits, the walls were all white, all the offices were white. It sort of gave you that reason for Kyle to want to join this Rebirth program, because he's got that mundane 9-to-5.
They opened with a montage.
Yeah.
And how often do you see a film open with a montage? Like, that's the very first thing you see, and straight away you're like, oh, this guy's got a really routine life.
He's just kind of just bored with his job. This is what he just goes through the motions every day.
And I thought that opening was really, really good, because it gave you that reason, that montage, just that routine was like, okay, and he's staring at the clock, and it's like, bang, okay, this guy needs a change in his life. And I thought that's probably one of the better things of the film, was they set it up well, but then it's gone downhill from there.
It sets it up for, I guess, why he did decide to go on this kind of retreat.
Yep. Yeah. And were there any other scenes that stood out for you?
Do you want to go good or bad?
Stand out. So anything that actually stood out that you thought?
I enjoyed the scene where Kyle has the knife to Jesse's throat. And he's going through all panic, trying to escape. I guess that was kind of where I saw what MJ was talking before about his wooden performance acting. That's where it kind of, escaped from that woodenness. And I enjoyed it, going from room to room. Everyone's worried and things like that. I thought that was a good scene.
So we've got to the point now where we're talking about them being at this warehouse or whatever for the Rebirth. Because I think that's obviously where most of the, either positive or negative, how we want to look at it, most of the crux of how we feel about this film is going to happen. You know what really annoyed me? It really annoyed me when they kept when they were chanting, not cult.
Yeah.
I feel like, that was definitely the irony of it. But it annoyed me because they had to go at him like, you're judging us. Why are you judging us? Like, where are you from? Minnesota. Oh, he's from Minnesota.
Yeah.
It's like, hang on, you're judging him just because of where he's from. That was the whole warehouse stuff. I thought was really quite strange. I feel like so you get the idea that there's these different, I guess, activities happening in every single room.
Yeah.
I feel like none of these ideas were ever fleshed out. I feel like they were writing a script and they said, oh, there's stuff happening in all these rooms, and he pops into a couple of them.
And then it's like, let's get him out of the room before we actually
figure out what's going on in this room.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And I'm not fussed that, like, in the film itself we didn't explore it, but I do feel like they should have thought about it to base it around something a little bit better. So I don't feel like anyone who made this film actually knows what happens at Rebirth.
No.
I don't think I think they just wanted to seem like this culty kind of.
Yeah.
I guess Rebirth is a good way to put it, but they actually don't know what happens, and I think it was just a little bit too convenient and thrown together.
But like even before they get to the warehouse, when he checks into like that hotel for the pre-thing, he's like got that little quest where he's got
The clues, the shower thing and the safe.
Then 911, and he calls the phone. He's like, "Oh no, I bet it's actually a safe code because like."
Yeah. I liked his reaction when he dialed 911. I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure that's the cops, and I was like, oh, it's a hotel. Maybe there's a room 911. And like, what's your emergency? He's like, oh no. I like that.
And like, so he rocked up at that hotel with his backpack,
his pillow.
Okay, good. I've got this written down because the whole pillow thing. Why do you bring a pillow to a hotel?
But that's him. Like, he's this 9 to 5 father of one. Him and his wife. He's going away for what he thinks is a retreat. He brings his pillow.
Yeah, you don't take a pillow.
To
that was on character though.
Yeah,
I'm walking in with the pillow.
That really annoyed me.
Yeah,
probably
really.
more than it should have.
Yeah. really.
It annoyed me that when he got on the bus, he didn't have his pillow. That's what annoyed
He
me.
just left it there.
Yeah.
I was talking about on the
bag.
bus. When they all get on the bus and you got just all just kind of, that was just weird. They're all just kind of sitting there, all robots kind of thing.
I guess it was in one of the rules that you don't talk about.
Yeah.
What happens.
So yeah, he was the only newbie on there, but it just felt really strange.
When he got to the Rebirth thing, then like we've got these 2 rules you got to follow. And then there were 4 rules.
Yeah, they kept reeling off rules.
Yeah, and they started off and said, "Oh no, there's 2 rules," and then it's like, "Nah, we got 4." I was like, "Okay, surely someone would have checked that at some stage."
Where's the script supervisor?
The script has not been written well.
No, wasn't even looked at. So that annoyed me. Anything else that really annoyed us?
Talk about the end.
Well, how about before we get to the end, like when he arrives back at his house, so after everything's happened, and he finds everything is branded by Rebirth. Because I was still in this movie, and and at this point I was like, okay, where's this going now? He's got out, he's going home, what's going to happen? And this was just a little bit too much. Because I started to get a little bit excited because I thought it was going to go to this new level. But then when you sort of see everything was branded, all the pictures were changed, Adam Goldberg was in the bath. You're like, hang on, how did this actually all happen? And then I was starting to think, oh, is this like some sort of alternate universe? Like, what's actually happened here?
How long was that bus ride back for Adam Goldberg to beat him there?
But you know what? I can understand if the bus with, the tinted windows takes him on a bit of a joyride. Yeah. So it gives them time to come back. But how much time to get all those photos of things that happened literally as he was leaving?
Yeah.
All those photos printed, framed,
put up there, yeah.
So that scene as well. So he realizes that his bank account's been compromised.
Yeah.
And he gets on the phone and he calls like the fraud line, whatever it is. And then that dialogue on the phone was all about the zombie. They'd been talking about these zombies all this the whole time. So realistically, that to me, does that mean this movie's not like everything that's happened is not real?
Well, that's where it comes down. Nothing was fleshed out as to how all this stuff happened. No. And that goes...
And like, does the Zach character have someone working it? Like, how...
But I think it's got something to do with the fact that they had his phone, whether they changed the numbers and all that sort of stuff or did anything like that. Maybe they didn't take any money. Maybe it was just...
Yeah. That's the thing. We don't know, and we don't think that the writers even know, like, what happened there.
Yeah, that sort of, that really confused me. Like, yeah. Tricky.
Now can we talk about the end? The end.
Yeah. All right. So, go the end.
Does Kyle actually get reborn? Because he doesn't. Like, you guys both agree that this was just like that video at the end was blackmail.
It was blackmail, yes.
Like the pyramid scheme type blackmail.
One of the worst endings ever.
But if it wasn't if the ending wasn't that he was blackmailed and that he actually was just like, oh, you know what, Rebirth was amazing, that's more of a cop out.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm glad it wasn't that.
But so
I know it's ambiguous.
At the end, over the credits, you see like those testimonials with his wife, and obviously it's a few years later because he's got another kid, and the daughter's grown up. Did his wife have a Rebirth brand on her?
Yeah, she did.
Okay,
Yeah.
she got branded. If she's committed to the Rebirth and she's gone through it, are we thinking that he didn't?
No, so I'm saying that Rebirth as a whole is a big scam. And everyone doing it is in it for some sort of financial gain.
Yeah, I agree with
They
that.
make these amazing testimonial videos so more people come, they start eking money out of them, they become investors, and it grows.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, that's what I'm pretty sure it is.
But you're kind of always forced to be going back in there because they've always got this thing hanging over your head.
Yeah. So if Kyle's only in it for the financial gains, then why does he allow his wife to actually
I think
have
she
that
has
branding?
Well, I think the branding is all part of the image.
Yeah.
It's part of the image. So why did they not show us with him with the branding?
I think he's just assumed he has one. That's what I thought. I just assumed he had one, and they showed the wife to show that he also got her involved too.
Yep.
I kind of assumed that.
I get that too, but he's the character that we've followed the whole film, and the whole film is about his rebirth, and we don't actually see him with that.
Maybe that's supposed to be that little clue that because it is ambiguous.
Really,
you could sit there and go, he got reborn. Good on him. He actually did come into it. But I think maybe, to your point, Jesse, that he didn't get it, that was maybe a little hint from the director, like, hey, he's just talking out of his ass here to go along with the ride. I didn't notice it, to be honest, but it's a good point.
So, we're touching on it now. What was the movie trying to say? Like, what were some of the actual themes or anything? Like, obviously, I think money was a big thing in it. There was, at the start, as soon as Zach meets Kyle, he goes, it's hard for the millennials to get into mortgages because of the financial crisis. So there's that whole thing about corporate greed and these people trying to make money, and then it all comes down to him not wanting to lose his money as well.
The zombies. Like he's going to work every day.
Grind, the corporate grind.
Yeah.
But I also think it's a massive commentary on cult behaviour and indirectly pyramid schemes.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of a double of both.
The brainwashing and manipulation of these organisations.
And it's not a positive look.
No.
It's not going, you know what, these guys are all right.
No, it's how they brainwash and manipulate, I guess, average Americans and people in general.
I was reading a review, and one of the people in there said that these video testimonials and things that you see, they're like very similar to the Scientology videos.
I read a lot of Scientology links. I saw reviews actually from people who
compared it,
had been in Scientology, come in and out of Scientology, and they were like, this movie really struck a chord with me because it's exactly what it's like. God.
Obviously, there's like that side of things where it's like trying to get in touch with yourself, having fun, getting rid of that 9-to-5 sort of thing. I like that idea, but Kyle didn't.
But do you think? I think this is almost.
He got out of it.
This is almost applauding the 9-to-5 because, well, like, what do you reckon they're more positive about in this film? The cult behaviour or the 9-to-5 daily grind? Because at the end of the day, he's saying this guy had this pretty safe, happy life in a 9-to-5. He went and joined his cult and things went haywire.
Yeah, like before that.
That's kind of how I see it.
I guess, but before, obviously, he wasn't happy in his job, but, he still had a wife and a kid and a house.
Yeah,
and
nice
he's
house.
going okay. Yeah, it's better. He was better off before he went in.
Attractive wife, gorgeous kid.
I don't like. Towards the end, it's like it seemed like they had an even better life though, because they're sitting by this nice pool.
But you don't believe that.
That's what they want you to believe though.
That's what the cult.
Yeah,
the way of the cult life wants you to think. And that's not what he's.
Yeah, I think
that wasn't. You could see at the end that wasn't Kyle talking on camera.
If it's not him, surely it's years later.
Obviously, it's years later.
So years later, he's obviously been in this place and he's been making the money off it. So if he's made the money back that he was worried about losing in the first place, why hasn't he left?
The question is he making the money back, or is he blackmailed to the point where he hasn't gotten out and he needs to play along?
Are they still hanging it all over his head, going, you have to keep towing the company line?
I feel like if you have your kids in that video and you've got those kids showing you those kids off, then you're in on that.
But he is in. He's stuck.
But I feel like it's in on it because he wants to. If he was, he'd be like, okay, I'll do it for you. I'll do what I've got to do. Like he did that video. I think he's in on that now.
Potentially.
Okay.
And then at the end, you see they had that list of all the upcoming tours or where they're going to speak to other people and that sort of stuff. He's that guy now who does those things.
This is why this film was intriguing because there's so much to talk about with it.
Which really confuses me because I didn't think I was going to have this much to say about it.
I came into this is the one that I wanted to talk about. After I watched this film, I was like, this is going to be great, even though it wasn't the best film, and it certainly wasn't the best film going around. I mean, we've already pointed out a ton of holes in the film, but it got you thinking, and that's important for a film that can stay with you and give you something. I've
got this thing I read as a piece of dialogue that says, the deeper you look, the further you see.
That's what we're doing right now.
And that was said during the film, so that's so there were
tagline for this podcast.
There were lots of these references to like the zombie life and you know, stop living your life as a spectator, and you know, there was a thing with his phone as well. The phone played a bit of a crucial part where he's in one of those rooms and it was like, you know, what's on your phone is not your reality. You know, these photos of your happy life, you're not really happy, blah, blah, blah. Was that trying to, like, to me, it was like this little half sort of push that they put in there to try and say, oh yeah, we can say that, you know, this guy is nothing without his phone because these are those fake images he's trying to show you of his family and that sort of stuff. Whereas I didn't feel that he was that unhappy with his kid and his wife.
No, they definitely didn't. They set up that he lived this routine life, and they set up that maybe it was a little bit mundane. I guess the only real interaction he has with his wife prior to going to Rebirth is when he's looking through those photos.
Yeah,
and she comes
in the
down.
basement. Yeah,
and there didn't seem to be a whole heap of happiness in that conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's one little attempt at it, but I don't think it was, like so many other things in this film, fleshed out enough. Because I certainly didn't get the vibe that he was particularly unhappy. And
found quite interesting as well. So when I think he first mentions to his wife at the start of the movie that he'd run into Zach, sorry. And she was just kind of like, oh, who is that? And at the end of the movie, when she sees him, she's kind of all warm and welcome. Like, oh, hey, how's it going? Come in, our kiddos. Just such a contrast of who are you talking about? The guy into, this is, you know, my best friend from years ago. I haven't seen him in a while. How you doing? Just seemed like a very strange contrast into how she perceives Zach.
I guess, I mean, at the end of the day, she knew he was there with Zach or with Zach's blessing, and the fact that Zach was there, she knows who he is. But that's a good point as well. Why, you reckon she was in on it as well?
Ooh. Not necessarily, but I was just very... when I saw it, I was just very kind of like, that just seems like a strange welcoming for someone at the start of the movie who was kind of asking questions like, who do you mean?
Maybe she was in on it. Maybe she was the one that got all the photos on the wall and set the house up like that.
Yeah, maybe they already had her in.
They could have.
Ooh, I like this better.
That makes a bit more sense.
This movie's getting better and better as we speak.
You know what? When she said straight away, she's like, "This sounds great. Maybe I should do it." Like she was pretty quick to.
She was very much into it.
How convenient was it when she's like that? Literally, she comes home with the daughter, and then the daughter just nicks off straight away.
Yeah.
But they needed that time to kill while she was going upstairs to get I'll go get our daughter.
Yeah.
And it takes her like 5 minutes to come back. I'm like, she was literally just there.
I just scream out for her.
All right. I've got a few questions to ask towards the end, but what do we take away from this film? Like, I thought it was a pretty ordinary film. I know we've fleshed it out a little bit now.
This was an very ordinary film.
I've read a few things online, and I reckon you're probably going to say the same thing, a poor man's Fight Club.
I was going to say, like, this is I think he's tried to do a cross between Fight Club and The Game.
Okay.
I'm just like, what? He's watching too many David Fincher movies. He's decided he's going to make his own modern version of Fight Club and The Game. I literally, that's what I thought he was trying to do. Yeah. Which I didn't like.
It wasn't a great movie. But it got me thinking, and that's what I... Like, as soon as the movie finished, I jumped online. I started to read what people had to say about it. And there's a lot of movies where I don't do that.
Yeah.
And that says something.
I think what I said before was like, it wasn't a good movie, but unlike other bad movies, I still was intrigued the whole way as what was going to happen, how they were going to build the climax and how it was going to end.
I don't think this is a film that you necessarily would have to see on a big screen, so it's probably found its perfect market.
Yeah,
this is definitely just a Netflix kind of movie.
If it had a great payoff at the end, it would have been ideal for that.
Yeah.
But it lacked that.
And I feel like it's a film that's like you need to concentrate on what's going on, but at the end of the day, you didn't really need to.
Maybe you got to watch it again, and maybe you do find out that the wife's in it the whole time.
You watch it again and report back to us about what you think.
You're giving them way too much credit. There is no way that this needs a repeat watching at all. IMDb.
Yeah, I did it. Of course I did it.
What did we look up? What do we need to learn about this?
I reckon you got the same one as me, baby.
I'm thinking I know which one you did, but I did someone different.
I did this one straight away.
I was, before... Actually, I can't remember sequence in the movie, but I know who you're going to say, I assume.
So the character Jesse, the guy who had his knife to the throat, was played by Pat Healy, who is famously Jeff Carson from Draft Day, the GM of the Jaguars, who they get pick 6 back from in the draft.
That's not who I thought you were going to say.
I saw it straight away. I'm like, it's Draft Day! Sonny, what are you doing to me, mate?
All right, Hater, what did you...
Oh, straight away I thought the same thing. I thought you were going to say Marty from Harper's Island.
Uncle Marty?
Yeah. He played the guru with the girls.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't even pick that at all.
But he wasn't my IMDb. Mine was Eric Ladin, who plays Todd, when he came on screen. Because I was a big fan of his in The Killing, and he's been in Shooter as well. So he came on screen. I'm like, oh, okay, he's in this. So I jumped on and see what else he's been on.
Is that Uncle Marty?
Yeah, that was Uncle Marty.
I guess, Harper's Island's like 10 years, more than 10 years old now. I'd be like 15.
I was the same, the guru guy. I was like, I've seen that guy that gave...
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. You've stolen it.
Just ruined it for you.
I just thought that scene, I think maybe I was more distracted by some of the dialogue in that scene. The sexual dialogue in that scene was ridiculous. Like that was so awkward.
But that's what I mean about what was happening in these rooms was never fleshed out. They didn't know what was going on. Was that supposed to be like the sex room or something?
But I feel like so whenever he was in a room, it was like you can't
room,
you can't return to that room.
Yeah.
And whenever he was in that room, he always heard someone needing help.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, we need this common thing that we can just use as an escape.
That's good. That actually leads to a question that I had.
Good.
Was Rebirth, a thing for every single individual to get something out of? Or was it for one person every single time they had a new person? Because it felt like everyone was a player in Kyle's game. Yeah. And at the end, like, hey, it's Kyle. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, Kyle. And they came out on the stage and stuff.
That's why I thought it was kind of like the Fincher movie, The Game, because it's kind of all about just that one character and his story.
Do you think that's what it... Like, every single time they have a Rebirth meeting, do you think there's supposed to be one person and everyone's kind of got to play that role?
Kind of makes sense that why he was the only new person on the bus.
Yeah. I got that. I thought that's... Yeah. By the time that had happened, I was like, that's what Rebirth is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does seem like they're converting one person... or they're blackmailing one person at a time.
Because even that Todd guy was not going to let him leave.
No.
And then eventually it was obviously Zach playing a role of like, oh, help me. Yeah. Like, that was all set up for Kyle.
The whole movie kept saying to Kyle, you can leave at any time.
Yeah.
Did he really have the opportunity to leave?
No, not at all.
At any stage.
Well, when he
had the opportunity to leave the rooms.
Yeah.
When he finally left, he left.
But no one would tell him where the exit was, or help him.
Yeah, but then he did get out at the end.
Because that's after the big reveal though. Like, hey,
and then they say he did that was the quickest rebirth to stage 2 or whatever it was that we've ever seen, sort of thing.
But even though he clearly hadn't been reborn.
No, he hadn't at all. I don't know how they even came to that conclusion.
And they kept making that note, when Zach's in that room hanging and he's got all those marks on his back, they made a big deal about that's each of the rebirths that he's done. Yeah. So did he like, to me, like, I keep coming back to that because I feel like to have that rebirth, to them, you've got to have that stamp on your back. We didn't see that happen with him, so
it's a fair point.
No rebirth for him, for me. One of the rules they had was no spoilers. That was like, no spoilers.
Yeah.
That's don't talk about Fight Club.
Exactly. It's like that. Don't talk about Fight Club.
First rule about Fight Club, second rule of Fight Club.
And it was all about don't tell your friends about what happens here. You've got to bring them along so they can see what happens here.
So Fight Clubby.
A few people have said that they think that that's about the director saying a bit of commentary on like don't spoiling films. Like
spoiler is a specific film term.
Yeah, it is. It's a film terminology. So to me, it's really ironic that there's nothing that you can really spoil about this film.
Yeah. Maybe it's just his take on the film world in general.
There's no twist, so you can't. There's nothing to spoil about this film.
No, and even if you thought you could, you probably got it wrong.
Yeah. Exactly. The end when they were doing those little clips where it's like the testimony, those sorts of things. At the end they had like those medical warnings, like check you with your doctor.
Yeah, that was so good.
It wasn't believable anyway. So what's the point in having those? I didn't get what the point of having those on.
I thought that was ironic.
Ironic. That's all. That's all we give it, is being ironic. That Nicky Whelan, towards the end, she goes to Kyle. She goes, why do you think not belonging is such a bad thing? So is Kyle, the whole movie, is it just him about wanting to belong? He just wants to belong to something. Like he goes out of his way to, do this. Like he obviously goes back to his house and then he says, "Oh, I need this boys' weekend away." But is it because he just wants to belong? That's his.
They take him out of his comfortable situation,
everyday life.
But does he feel like he belongs? Like, because I don't think he belongs in that job. Because
No,
he
probably
goes in to talk. He tries to talk to his boss, like we said before. Boss has no time.
Seems
for him.
like
and
he's
then
very
the interns don't talk.
The intern, no one talks to him.
Seems like he's underqualified. Sorry, he's overqualified for his job. He should be doing something more.
Yeah. So it's about finding what you need, not what you want. So it's him. Yeah, he needs to belong. I don't know. I'm done with thinking about this film. Is there anything else that you guys want to talk about?
No, I don't think I got much more.
Yeah, I'm good.
Whew, that was tough. But I do like that we got you made me think a bit more.
I'm glad.
You made me think the whole thing was a setup.
I'm glad we all came to the party.
That was good.
So
How do we rate it?
Yeah, how do we rate this film?
You go, MJ?
I gave this film a higher rating because it got me thinking after the film finished, so I probably enjoyed the overall experience more than the process of actually sitting through it, which is absolutely an important factor in film enjoyment. So it got me thinking, and I like that. And I was curious to see if there may have been more clues, although it never felt too intellectual and it was pretty clunky and a bit directionless. But 2.5 stars.
Okay. I thought this movie sucked. I wasn't enjoying it. The story really wasn't going anywhere, but as I said, it did have me intrigued as to how it was going to end. But that really doesn't save it. It was pretty poor. I gave it 1.5 out of 5.
I have really enjoyed this discussion. And, I've enjoyed this more than I did watching the film. So,
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so that's good. But overall,
That's the film that did that, though.
no, it was you guys that did that. It had nothing to do with anyone that put any time whatsoever into this
You
film.
have to give the film credit for that discussion.
No, I give you guys credit for being intellectuals because no one involved in this film at all had any intellect to
We're not
them
that
whatsoever. Yeah.
Mate, this is a podcast for film lovers by film lovers. That's all it is.
And we love film, and the people who made this film obviously don't, because I'm giving my rating based on the film, and to me the film, I'm giving it a 1 out of 5 because it had very little. Like the first 5 minutes, I was like, "Oh, good setup. This could go somewhere really, really good." And then bang, disappointment. So 1 out of 5 for me. Heater, what does that give us?
When I use my intellectual brain to average out those scores, this is a 1.67 out of 5.
Cool. Our third worst film so
It is.
far.
Thanks to my 2.5, bumping that up.
Bumped it up.
Well done, Rebirth.
Whew. All right. So we have got there. We, as usual, really, really like our social media pages and the feedback we get from you guys. So if you can, please do make sure that you are following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We're at Flix Forum on all of those. As usual, we're going to chuck a question up on our pages.
I love these questions.
These are those
Those
questions.
Some good ones.
These,
Those are some real beauties.
I really struggled with this one.
Don't let us down
And
now.
as usual, I haven't told you what the question is. So my question is, should we live our lives by the out with the old, in with the new motto? I think there's heaps you could talk about with this film with that question. Heaps, because Kyle is that protagonist that we've seen, and is he just living now with the in rather than the old? So that will be on our Facebook pages, on our Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah.
If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. Do it. Give us a 5-star rating. Help
why
us
haven't you done
boost
it
us on the charts. Next week's film,
What do we next week?
we're looking at the 2016 comedy drama Tallulah, directed by Sian Heder.
Sounds like a Toodaloo.
Hey, we're keeping the G rating on here. Starring
Cool Runnings. What's Cool Runnings rated?
Cool rated.
PG. It's PG, that's all right. Stars Alan Page, Alison Janney, and Tammy Blanchard. So please watch the film before our next episode so we don't spoil the whole thing for you and ruin it.
We will.
More than likely.
ruin it.
I'll try and work on my intro next week to make sure I ruin it in the opening stages.
Please do.
Once again, always a pleasure. We've had a good
Thanks,
chat.
Jesse. Been a good time.
And we will see you guys next week.
And we'll watch Rebirth again as well.
I will not. But anyway.
MJ will.
Bye.
See ya.
See you, boys.